So should be pretty easy peasy. You have the advantage. I do not have a fan going, and it's like 85 degrees in my little closet studio here.
I feel for you. I just came from roasting in the garage where it was equally as hot. So
Roastar coffee packaging, found online at roastar.com, has printed great-looking bags for a host of your favorite coffee companies of all sizes that trust Roastar to produce packages worthy of their craft coffee beans. It's Roastar's mission, their ethos, to help their customers tell their stories, big or small. That includes those of you roasting coffee at home. If you're a small roaster wanting to share your coffee with friends and family and your coffee community, Roastar will support you too. Use the design templates on roastar.com to envision your coffee in a sleek coffee bag or a classic tin can. You can create a label or design a sticker. Use your own artwork or logos, or click into Roastar's Design Lab to access bag designs already, ready for you. Roastar tips the scales to favor home roasters, solo entrepreneurs, and small businesses by using digital printing to enable faster turnaround times and smaller print runs. In short, Roastar can help you, and on roastar.com, you can start with a quote and end with the perfect coffee bag to share your story. Hey there, I want to say thank you to all of you who support this podcast by buying us a cup of coffee, reading our newsletters on roastwestcoast.com, and listening to this show. Thank you. If you want to support this podcast, please click the Buy Us a Coffee link in this podcast's show notes. Now, on to the show. Hey, good morning, everyone. Welcome to Season 11, Episode 8 of the Coffee People podcast, which is part of the Roast West Coast Coffee Network and presented by Roastar Coffee Packaging, found online at roastar.com. I'm Ryan Woldt, and this is the show where I meet and chat with coffee people, and we share their stories with you. Today, I'm chatting with Kevin Meija, the founder and roaster behind Bevel Coffee in Monrovia, California, which is just northeast of Los Angeles. While you're listening to the podcast today, please be sure to check out bevelcoffee.com and at Bevel Coffee on social media. You'll find links in this podcast's show notes wherever you're listening, or in our newsletter, which I can send to you every week if you just enter your email address into the box that pops up when you go to coffeepeoplepodcast.com or roastwestcoast.com. It's the same place on the internet. On today's show, we cover a lot of ground, including serendipitous engagement, imposter syndrome, and the value of just starting the thing that you've been dreaming of. I've been dreaming of coffee. I mean, literally. Which is why I woke up this morning and headed north. I'm sipping on a lovely cappuccino that I picked up from show partner Camp Coffee Company in Oceanside, California, because sometimes it's a real pleasant luxury to have someone else make that coffee drink. So wherever you are, I hope you have a finely crafted beverage to drink too, and you're going to enjoy it while listening to this episode of Coffee People, featuring Kevin Meija, founder of Bevel Coffee. If we go off the rails right away, that's fine. I don't worry about it too much. It always works out in the end.
yeah.
But I'd love to start with having you tell everybody who you are, what your name is, the name of your company, where you're located, any of that fun information.
So my name's Kevin. The name of my company is Bevel Coffee. It's on my hat today, and we're from Monrovia, California, which most people won't be familiar with it, but it's just east of Pasadena in LA County. I always like to just say, like, have you seen the movie Grosse Point Blank? That basically that whole movie was filmed here. And if people are into that movie, I'll just ask. Maybe you've seen Next Friday. That was in Old Town Monrovia as well. So there's two flavors that we can give people.
I have this question that I kind of start shows off with sometimes, and I mix it up. But I think today I'm gonna to go with one of my favorites since you brought up the movies. The best Keanu Reeves movie of all time is what?
I spent some time thinking about this because I've listened to the other podcasts before, and some people had really thorough answers, and a big part of me just wants to give in to the silly part of me and say, Bill and Ted. However, I recently rewatched The Matrix, the original one, and thought this is probably one of the best movies ever made.
It still holds up. I mean, it's been 25 years, and you
Yeah,
can watch it today, and even what you would think would be bad, the CGI and stuff, is still plays. You can still watch it and not be distracted.
yeah, and what's wild is that movie was filmed. I don't know. We're probably creeping on 30 years, so it's crazy. But yeah, I'm gonna go with Bill and Ted though because I also really like George Carlin.
Oh, yeah, the late great George Carlin, always top of mind during political elections for me.
Yeah,
If you don't know George Carlin, you should Google George Carlin election, and you'll find something interesting. I promise. Let's just kind of learn a little bit about you, Kevin. I mean, who are you? I'm assuming you had a first experience with coffee. What was your kind of story and your first? Hey, this is something I'm interested in.
I think a lot of people find themselves probably in coffee because they're probably already foodies or something like that. And when I was much younger, I was really, really, really into the craft beer thing while I was working at a bike shop. And, there's a cafe nearby in Pasadena for those that live nearby, Jones Coffee. And I would frequent that shop all the time. And then a friend of mine one day was like, dude, you got to stop drinking this here for whatever reason. And I was like really into dark roast at the time because I thought that was the thing to do. And he brought me a bag of Suit and Knives coffee, which was part of the Coffee Collab way back when. And it was this natural Ethiopian. I think, like most people that get into coffee, they went, whoa, blueberries. And that was kind of the catalyst for me, beginning to buy. I bought a Chemex, I bought an AeroPress. I got myself at the bike shop. There's this company GSI that makes like camp equipment, and so I ordered this, camp hand grinder, and would like hand grind my coffee in the mornings, and that was kind of the beginning of it.
That first time you taste like fruit in your coffee, it's very confusing and very overwhelming. I certainly have a blueberry story as well. You're working in craft beer and bikes. Why not stay there? That's a pretty cool life.
Well, working just in bikes, not craft beer, but drinking plenty of it at the bike shop. Cycling was great. Cycling was the thing that led me into what I did for many years, which was work in the fitness industry. So after I left managing or assistant managing a bike shop, I went and became a personal trainer. I worked at Equinox. That led me to connections that helped me, move abroad. And I worked basically as an online personal trainer in 2016, living from Munich. Came back, started a business, and basically operated a gym for almost 6 years. And then I really wanted to put a cafe into the gym. And then that ended up leading to me just leaving the fitness industry altogether and then getting into coffee fully because I started to roast coffee and wanted to really get in touch with the green side of coffee and get to know producers and things like that.
That kind of leads us into how you got into it as a career. There's a big jump from going, I want to add coffee to my fitness gym to quitting my job and starting something new. How did that transition take place? What pushed you over the edge?
The pandemic, really. So, unlike most businesses, the gym was actually doing really great during the pandemic, and we opened a larger location. But I still had a lot of time because we cut down on hours, and we were just doing a different thing with online coaching while everyone was kind of locked down, right? And so what ended up happening was I had, extra money, and I bought an espresso machine, which I had never really gotten into before. And then I also went and bought a roaster, which was just kind of to start learning. So I bought the showroom makes this roaster called the Arc 800, which is definitely not how most people start roasting in their homes. Most people get like a whirly pop thingy or a popcorn maker or something, and they use that kind of thing. But I was like, if I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna do this right. So I just spent the money, bought a roaster and used that for probably about a year. Messed up plenty of coffee, and but I drank it. I tried to, at least. And so yeah, what really wound up happening was I had a partnership that dissolved in the fitness industry, and so my girlfriend and I went up north to visit my mom in Bend, Oregon, which is one of my favorite cities. And I was just kind of thinking, like, what's my next move going to be, And I thought, I can't really imagine myself going to get a 9 to 5, or getting a regular job or working for somebody. So maybe I pursue this coffee thing in a more meaningful way. So we hit we hit Craigslist and started searching for roasters and started to find, like, where am I going to buy a roaster at a decent price. And so there was this gentleman in Phoenix, Arizona, selling his 3 kilogram Mill City for a very reasonable price. So I gave him a call. He kind of gave me we FaceTimed each other. He showed me the roaster, told me the things that were wrong with it and why he was selling it so cheap. And I was like, I'll buy it. Let's do it. So I drove from Bend, Oregon back to LA, picked up my friend in a trailer, and then the following morning drove straight to Phoenix, bought a roaster, and drove back the same day.
I can see how. I mean, Bend has got great coffee shops: Lone Pine, Smokin' Moto, Thump, Back Porch. There's just a bunch. I can see why you get
Yeah.
inspired to get into coffee when you're there. One of my favorite cities to visit as well. At any point during that drive to Phoenix and back, did you have a moment of, oh, what the f have I done? Right? Like, what am I doing here? This is a huge leap.
Uh, you know, I don't think so. I think that when I get like an idea that's really kind of like grabbing me, hell or high water, I'm going to find a way to make it happen. As long as I'm not like hurting people in the process or like making irreparable damage to my bank account, then I'll find a way to figure it out. Speaking of the roasteries up there, we were up there for probably 3 weeks. We'll call it sabbatical from the departure of leaving the fitness industry, and the crew over at Thump, actually, I had gone to visit a few times before, and I just wanted to go like sit in on a roasting day. They have a Loring in their space, which is a beautiful space if anyone's ever up there. And I cupped with the roasting team and the production team there, and it was just another experience of like, these people are cool. Like, I really enjoy interacting with coffee people, and since I've started to dive into coffee, I feel like I haven't had. I can't say never, because I think everyone has had a bad experience with a person, but seldom do I have bad experiences with people in the coffee industry.
Once you get that new roasting machine back and kind of set up, what's happening between that moment and when Bevel Coffee Company becomes a thing?
So it wasn't that much time. We were in Bend, Oregon, August of 2022, the early part of August. I picked up that roaster maybe the 20th or the 21st. While I was at the gym and had thought about putting a cafe in the gym, I had picked up an E65 grinder, a Malkunig, and a GS3. So I had an espresso machine and a grinder that I was like, well, I got to do something with these things. So I built a cart. So I'm a hobby woodworker. I took that skill set and built a cart. I bought a flow jet and bought all the plumbing and put together this cart. And so by the 26th of August, which is 2 days ago, I had set up our first event. My friend here in Monrovia has a cafe called Gray and Cash, and he actually helped me get those machines through. He had an account with Ritual, so I was able to get like a little bit of a discount through Ritual for the machines. Um, and he was like, "Well, hey man, like, why don't you pop up? We close at." He was like, "We close at 2 p.m. Monrovia has a farmers market every Friday night from 4 to 9 p.m. You can pop up there at the farmers market. You're not going to pay the farmers market fee. You can just piggyback on the fact that I have a health permit and you're part of the business because you're going to plug in and use our kitchen." And so for probably about uh, close to 6 to 9 months, we were popping up in front of the farmers market in Monrovia, in my hometown, while simultaneously taking every single gym contact friend that I had and just doing like I call it tour de gym for like 3 months, where every single weekend we popped up at a different gym throughout LA County, mostly CrossFit gyms. But I worked at Equinox, so we did like Equinox a handful of times, and that led me to meeting the gentleman who was the manager of Ron Herman out in West Hollywood. And so we popped up at Ron Herman for some of their big parking lot sales. And that led to us meeting more people. And that's really how we survived for the first year, on top of doing farmers markets in Altadena, El Monte, and other cities nearby.
I mean, that it's such a quick turnaround. Do you think were you able to process the quality of what you were doing? I assume that as you're going week to week, you're roasting and getting more and more experience. You're learning your machines, you're doing all that. Do you see a through line of, hey, I'm improving and getting better, and this is going to continue to be successful? Or did you feel right from the beginning that there was you had a baseline that you felt comfortable giving to people? Because I think a lot of people have, when they first start, and this is, I'm saying this a little bit selfishly, that's how I feel, imposter syndrome, right? I haven't done this before, and I'm asking you to give me money so I can learn how to do
Uh, I still feel imposter syndrome to this day.
it.
Coffee Fest just ended, and I had a couple of events where I was brewing coffee for people or giving people bags and things like that. And to this day, 2 years later now, I'm still like shy and afraid that I'm going to get, I can't call it negative feedback because all feedback is good feedback, but some criticism that maybe I won't take well. And I have had that, but it's always been helpful. So I still feel that, and I feel you. But yeah, I think I spent a lot of time on the ARC 800, probably about not a lot of time, half a year, right? Roasting on the smaller machine and understanding it. Before the decision to actually start a coffee company, there was like the space where like that partnership was dissolving, where I was still learning a lot. I had, I did a Scott Rao masterclass. I read Rob Hoose's book, and I was trying to like cup and taste as much coffee as possible. I started cupping leaderboard coffee so that I could taste more coffees. And so there was, I think, still some level of QC that I was going through to make sure that what I delivered tasted good. And then on top of that, when I started the company, the other thing that I asked my friend who owns this cafe in Monrovia to do was, hey, I've never worked in a cafe in my life. Can I, you don't even have to pay me. Can I just like come be on bar for a couple shifts and like feel a weekend rush, because I've been there when he's busy. And he was like, yeah, man, anytime. And so, really, I have him to thank because, so like back to those like 6 to 9 initial months, I also worked there three, 3 days a week, give or take, on bar for the full day. And he did end up paying me. He ended up just hiring me. He's like, "You're going to be here this much. Like, you got to get paid." I ended up working there, and really learning like how to steam milk and how to pull shots consistently, and you know, do everything at that shop that was related to being a barista, which we were doing a pop-up cart, so I had to be a good barista and serve a decent espresso and a decent coffee. So that's really what helped that. And then on top of that, like, I was really keeping my ear to the ground and trying to connect with people. And so Azahar at that time had done this like little tour. They're an importer of Colombian and Mexican coffees. They did this little tour of, visiting cafes and doing these cuppings. And so we met Andrea, who was the relationship manager for Azahar at the time, and we went to go get him Tiger at the like Walt Disney Plaza area right there, and met met her, tasted amazing coffees. And so once we like connected with them, she connected me with other importers. So then I was like, all right, cool. Now I'm connecting with the people that are bringing in the right coffees, that have the right values and care about the same things, in terms of transparency and things like that, where I knew that I was onto the right thing. Especially like that cupping was mind blowing to me, because it was like the guy that started Heart, the green buyer from Sight Glass, the guy that used to be the green buyer for Intelligentsia, and so like everybody was there, and I was just like, I started my company like 3 weeks ago, guys.
I get that. I was just doing a roasting competition judging, and there were four Q graders and then me, who's just like a guy. And I'm trying to keep up with their capabilities of cupping coffees and tasting. But I think that's the cool thing about coffee, and what you mentioned before. Coffee people generally are one super open. I hear over and over in the show, like, my company exists because these people told me how they did it and what mistakes they made and shared their thing, even though I was starting a competing company. And I think once you find somebody with a similar ethos, a similar passion for something, your friend who let you work the bar, he probably knew that, like, if you worked the bar on a busy rush day and you stuck with it, you were probably going to stick with it, because it'd be real easy to be like, not for me. It's not an easy gig.
I mean, to this day, I tell this to people sometimes, almost as a joke, but it's kind of true. Where I don't really identify as a barista. I identify more as a roaster. Even though I work bar 5 days a week on my cart, when there's like a really good rush, I still get the like tunnel vision. Like all I see is tickets and coffee, and like, faces start to disappear, and I don't like that feeling. Being in front of the roaster is just like, there's a flow to it, there's steps, and it feels a lot nicer. And you know production can be boring, but you throw a good podcast on and you're good to go.
I know a few. I'll send some lists. Uh, from this point where you're doing pop-ups and you're doing farmers markets, you're moving forward. You mentioned the 26th, 2 days ago. We're talking the 28th of August. You just celebrated your 2-year anniversary. That's amazing. Congratulations.
Thank you. Yeah, it's a big milestone for us, and really the milestone that we were kind of waiting to get to before we start looking for brick and mortar. So that's our next step.
But it's not like you just mentioned you're on bar 5 days a week. Where is that? I think you have a partnership with like a local pizza place, right?
That's right. So we partnered with Prime Pizza, which they have 7 locations throughout LA County. They're relatively well known and pretty famous, I think, at least. And yeah, it was a serendipitous thing. We were doing the Altadena Farmers Market, which you mentioned you lived in Altadena, so they do
Hmm.
it at this park on the streets Loma Alta, and we were doing this farmers market, and we met the owner of a high-end beverage market. It's called Altadena Beverage in Altadena, right on Allen. And so we just were shooting it, and I was like, hey, I actually heard that you guys sell coffee and this and that, and we'd love to do a pop-up there. And I casually mentioned that what I really wanted to do was find like a permanent pop-up location where we can start to build some community. And so that's kind of where that conversation ended. And so, let's rewind a year ago. On the 26th, we were celebrating our 1 year anniversary at a local brewery, a buddy's brewery here in Pasadena. And the next morning, I get a DM on Instagram from Zach, the owner of Prime Pizza, and he goes, "Hey, my name's Zach. I own Prime Pizza. I heard you're looking for a permanent pop-up location. I would love it if you came to check out our new location in Altadena, and see what you think." So at this moment, I knew nothing about Prime Pizza. And I was like, oh yeah, sure. Like, how's next week? I'm actually about to go do this pop up at a local rock climbing gym the day after our 1 year, and so I'm busy today, but we can schedule something, and so he showed up to the rock climbing gym totally unannounced with his son, and I was like, surprised that he showed up. And so he was like, "Yeah, I just wanted to come and introduce myself in person and like talk a little bit more about that." And so we chatted a little bit more, and I think I was like so taken back that my service brain like shut off, and I didn't even think to offer him a coffee while I'm sitting in front of my machine. So it's funny because he walked away and the conversation was great, and he walked away and I sat there and I like looked down at my machine. I was like, damn it, I didn't offer him coffee. And so I was like, man, I blew it, he's in the service industry. I blew it. And so I met with him the next week. It was like a Monday or Tuesday, and they hadn't even opened yet. They're right near Eaton Canyon in Altadena. And so it used to be a bakery called Patty Cakes way back when, and so the feedback that Zach, the owner of Prime, was getting was that the neighborhood really wanted a coffee option because so many people would walk to that area, and that particular area is like there's just like this intersection with like maybe four commercial properties on one side, maybe four on the other side, and then like the two big ones, and that's all there is right there. Other than that, you got to go down like about a mile in either direction to get to some more commercial. So it's like a little pocket right there. And he hadn't opened and he was getting this feedback, and I was like, well, let's test it out. Let's check for a proof of concept. Let's do Saturday, Sunday pop-up. They haven't even opened yet. They were slated to soft open the following Wednesday, and we do the soft open, if you remember, a GS3 and this a grinder. And we had like a pitcher rinser and things to like speed up the workflow, but in any case, a single group machine. And it was a 4 hour pop-up, 8 to noon, and it rained. So we were like, oh, dude, it's not gonna happen. I was like, well, let's set up under this awning and like let's fulfill our promise, So we set up under the awning, and it was crazy. For 4 straight hours on Saturday and Sunday, there was like a line under the entire awning, plus like around the building. People were leaving in line. I felt really bad because people were waiting like 30 to 40 minutes to get their drink after they ordered, because we hadn't really had like a system to throttle the line a little bit and to, do any of those things because we'd never experienced that. The proof of concept was there. It was amazing. And so I was like, well, what do you think about Thursday through Sunday? Like, let's do 4 days. And he was like, yeah, let's do it. We open at 11. You'll be there by yourself from 8 to 11. And then you close at noon. So there'll be an hour of overlap, which is totally fine by me. What do you need? And I was like, I'm not going to make it with the GS3. So I need to go buy a bigger machine. And he was like, invest, man. Let's do it. And so we reached out to a friend of ours. My girlfriend and I, work in this together. She, on paper, I own the business, but she really helps with the numbers and the accounting and the things I don't want to deal with. And so we borrowed $12,000. We hit up Black Rabbit, and Ryan, the rep there, was like super helpful and found us a La Marzocco PB2. And so we bought this PB2. We hopped on Craigslist. I found this coffee cart that was built with like this refrigerator and this whole thing, but it needed 240 volt. So Zach, the owner, installed 240 volt on an outlet outside, and we just slapped this thing together, and it lives at the shop. We moved it there, and that was all we did. And yeah, we've been doing it for a whole year since. So the 1 year at Prime will be Labor Day, the 2nd of September.
That's wild to think of how quickly you had to react to it. Hey everyone, this is Ryan, the host of the Coffee Smarter and Coffee People podcasts. I've mentioned on the show several times, actually, that I use Baratza grinders at home. I've found them to be consistent, durable, and frankly a company that I feel values their customers. I recently partnered with Baratza, and if you're in the market for a new grinder, as well as a fan of this podcast, I'd appreciate it if you would use the link in the show notes or on roastwestcoast.com to make the purchase. Doing so will support the creation of this podcast, and you'll know that you're getting a great grinder for your countertop. Baratza is just the third company we've partnered with to do affiliate marketing this year, and while that is 3 more than the year before, we're still fairly picky about it. Look for a full review on the Baratza Encore grinder, based on thousands of uses, in our newsletter coming in the next few weeks. Thank you for supporting Roast West Coast by clicking the link to the Baratza grinder in this podcast show notes, and I hope you enjoy your new coffee grinder. The name of the company, Bevel, you mentioned earlier, you're a woodworker. Can you explain what that is to people, and how did you come to that name as something that represented what you were trying to do?
So, like any naming story, there was a lot of thinking about different things, and buying several domains even that I didn't end up using just in case. And while we were in Oregon, I was just trying to think of things that were concepts that could illustrate something to people that hopefully will be clear, right? So a bevel is just an angled edge on a wood piece, right? Many times it's a non-structural thing. Most of the time non-structural. So you might see like a bevel edge on a mirror, or you might see a beveled edge on a cutting board, and it's not part of the structure of it, but it adds color and depth to this otherwise plain object. And so I wanted that attention to that detail, the thing that adds color and depth to an inanimate object, to be the focal point of what I did in coffee. And sometimes it's a bit long winded to explain all that, I think, for Bevel. And I have my own feelings about that. Now going on 2 years later, being Bevel, but I do think that the name still holds for the idea that it conveys. But we get plenty of, what's Bevel? What's this? Are you related to Bavel? That's in the Arts District, the restaurant, and that kind of thing. So there's a thing to tackle there, but that's how the name Bevel came up.
I'm looking at the hat you're wearing, the Bevel Coffee hat, the V there in the middle. What is that little symbol there in the middle? I'll post this in the newsletter for anyone listening.
So the V in the middle, it's got a couple of, so all the letters are beveled. The V can look like a pour over cone if you take a look at it, right? And people often look at this and think it's a drill bit, which makes sense for bevel, right? For like a kind of woodworky
I thought mountain bike
idea.
tire,
Oh, okay, interesting. That's that. I haven't heard.
like an upside down bike fork. I
Yeah,
mean, that's what's been on my brain lately. But
the branding agency, our friend that helped us with this, he said that it is stylized bevels, but it's meant to be the steam rising from a pour over device. So
yeah, that makes sense.
that's really what it was meant to be. But I've heard so many different ideas for it, and so I love hearing what people think. Mountain bike tire is great. I mountain bike as well, so that sounds cool to me.
Yeah, when I was stalking your Instagram a little bit, doing some research, I was like, we do a lot of the same stuff here. Like, this guy and I have a lot of similar interests. I'm not a big mountain biker. I do love that culture. I'm doing a pop up in the mountains for the Mountain Bike Association in October. If
Okay.
you're listening, watch for news on that. I just got a new mountain bike like a week ago, so it's like all I'm thinking about, trying
Nice.
to get back into it.
Yeah. So interestingly enough, you're saying you're doing a pop up in the mountains. While we were doing all the farmers markets and things like that, we connected with the owner of a pack station at a local trailhead, which has been closed since the I think it started in June after the pandemic. So like March pandemic started, and in June there was this massive fire called the Bobcat Fire that destroyed so much of the mountains. And one of my favorite trailheads, Maggie, the owner of the pack station, had purchased it right before then, and then they couldn't operate the pack station. They have pack mules that take you into a campground deep in the mountains there. So they've been closed since 2020, right? They're slated to open in October, and she just stopped by our pop up. Unfortunately, I wasn't there. It was Sunday while we were at Coffee Fest, but she mentioned that she wanted to potentially do a maybe another permanent pop-up situation at the trailhead because it gets really busy there on the weekends, which I agree it does. And so slight chance that we might just put the GS3 up there permanently, which to me speaks to my heart, man. I would love nothing more than like to serve a couple coffees for like 3 or 4 hours and then just like grab my bike and then take a lap around the trail right there.
There's something about bikes and coffee that goes together. It's a stereotype for a reason. Coffee does a lot of things, and it sounds like to me you're somebody who is very proactive in making choices about the things that you're doing, both in coffee and outside of that. I saw that you did an origin trip to Honduras.
That's right.
What a part of that experience, stands out to you as the part that's like, this is what I'm taking away from this?
So yeah, we were in Honduras a little over a month ago. So for context, my family is Honduran. So going back to when I was starting to get into coffee and I wanted to get in touch more with the green side of coffee, I really wanted to highlight Honduran coffees. And so we had never gotten an opportunity in the past 2 years to go to Origin because it can be expensive. And my girlfriend works in immigration law, so we also hear like the horror stories of like a country like Honduras, and we hear it from our families as well who still live there. So finally, we reached out to exporters that we've been working with for a while, San Vicente, which is, Benjamin Paz is a very well known in the coffee world, a recent Cup of Excellence winner, and set up to finally visit, not only to make an origin trip, but really what we were going to do is we were going to go to the island of Honduras to go celebrate my girlfriend's 30th. So we made it happen, and it was such a beautiful experience. I mean, I already loved coffee, and I already loved many delicious Honduran coffees that we've not only served but just have tasted. Like, if we go to a new roastery or a new cafe and they have something Honduran, I almost always want to buy it so that I can taste what's going on out there. And so we got to meet producers that we had worked with last year. Our first micro lot, like when you're a roaster, there's this like thing where like you start by buying 20-pound quantities or whatever it is. A lot of people like Sweet Marias or, Coffee Bean Crow, whatever it is. And then like when you start to commercialize, you get to this point where you're like, all right, I'm going to buy one full bag. So our first full bag was a Colombian coffee through Azahar. And that was like, I couldn't believe I was going to spend $700 on a bag of coffee. So that was like around October or something like that. And then when the new year came around, we reached out to Bonaventure, which is Kevin Bolin and Benjamin Pasa's company here in the U.S. that imports Honduran coffees. And so we connected with them. They sent us samples, and we were able to contract our first micro lot, which is like, this is all the coffee that exists of this thing. It was just 4 bags, but it was like the biggest thing for us to be like, all right, we're gonna have this coffee. It'll be like for a big long time. This is huge. And that was a producer named Misa Ochoa. Earlier this year, we got a single bag lot from another producer, Sebastian Martinez. And so I'll get back to that in a second. But we were at Expo in Chicago earlier this year, and Roaster Cat, who many people know is a great friend of mine in coffee, and we were at one of the after parties at Metric, and being in the fitness industry, that's what she and I connected on, is fitness. And Jared from Cat and Cloud was like roaming around, and Cat goes, "Kevin, meet Jared. You CrossFit, he CrossFits, we all CrossFit. Let's be friends." And so we started connecting, and Jared purchases from San Vicente as well, and was starting a program called the Best Friends Club, where for every bag of retail coffee sold, we send $1 back to Honduras as a profit share, and then for every pound of wholesale sold, you send back 50 cents. He had a producer in mind already that we could connect with, named Damien, to be part of this club. The first person that we went to go meet and greet down there was Damien. And, you know, being that we're from Honduras, I speak Spanish, going down there and meeting Damien and his family, it felt like I was just going to talk to my family. Like, we ate the same food that my mom makes. And, we hiked up to this was like the most hiking that we did while we were on that trip, actually. It was going up to go see his like Bourbon farm up above El Cedral in Santa Barbara. And it was so gorgeous. There was like onions and carrots and other stuff planted around, and it was just green and beautiful, and it overlooks the lake. And it was a side of Honduras that I'd never gotten to experience as a kid. I've been there when I was 8 and 12 years old. My grandparents and my family don't live very far from Santa Barbara. It's like an hour and a half away, maybe an hour, but they live like in the city, so it's a totally different experience. It was amazing, like hanging out, being surrounded by people that, like, growing up in a city like Monrovia. It's a, predominantly white collar, and predominantly just, I don't know. I grew up listening to metal and like not connecting with my family's culture, right? I grew up like into skateboarding and punk, so I never connected with Honduran culture outside of the food. Like the music didn't really interest me. When I went as an 8 and 12-year-old, it was like my mom probably sent me down there kicking and screaming because I didn't really want to spend 3 months down there. I would have rather stayed home and played video games or something. And so, being able to go down there with just a different context of the beauty and the work that went into that was amazing. And that was just like day one. And then the following morning, we went to go meet Misael, which is that first lot of coffee that we ever purchased. And then we met Sebastian and we hung out at his house. And, one of the most beautiful things I think about being there was there's always this poverty exists in the country 100%, but there's a different type of wealth that exists there with like, you know, people like live with the land, and the houses are built into the mountains in a way that just like feels really special. And I also didn't expect to see a third wave coffee shop there, a specialty coffee shop. We went to two while we were there, and you just don't expect those things out of an origin country because of the thing that we're kind of taught about a country that's seen as third world, when in reality the countries are totally abundant in resources. And unfortunately, things like commodity coffee and things like being a banana republic or something like that really hurt those countries. Really trying to like put my best foot forward, and not being a part of that problem is a huge thing that we started with to begin with, but this is like really more clear to me now after that trip.
Very cool. I've lived away from home for a long time, and domestically, obviously, I'm from Wisconsin. But even when I go home now, I see things in a different way because I'm a different person. I'm a different age. So, like you mentioned, that 8-year-old, that 12-year-old, he's not seeing the same thing. Those
Yeah.
memories are going to be different. But now you're taking that into your day to day. I'm wondering if you can, you know, reflecting on that recent experience, and now going into what'll be your third year in coffee as Bevel. What do you see this coming year looking like? What have you learned that you thought, man, this just isn't what I was expecting, but I'm grateful for?
the first thing that we're really looking forward to after our second year is that we're looking to open a cafe finally. The pop-up situation at Prime is a beautiful situation, and I couldn't have asked for a better thing. However, for those of you that do pop-ups, you know that pulling things in and out of your car, your truck, your van, doesn't matter how easy you make it, it is still hard work. And you haven't even made a dollar yet. All you've done is set up. So I'm ready to do that. And on top of that, I roast out of our home. We have cottage food license. Being able to put everything into one space, roastery, cafe, all that, and just streamlining that process, I think is going to help us grow things like our retail, online retail and wholesale, which are by far the hardest things to grow for any roastery that's starting. Most of the income that Bevel makes is, the pop up. So going into this third year, I guess, you know the work's never going to end, and it's never going to get easier. It just turns into other things. I'm sorry to say that to people, but it's not. It's true.
I'm only laughing because I know that to be true, and you can tell somebody that a million times, but they don't, until they experience it, they don't really understand it.
It just becomes different work, right? Like it's not easier. It's not. There are things like, you start to delegate things out and all that stuff, and that stuff's really important. And I think, I had the fortune of having run another business beforehand, that I came in with like some business sense. And even then, I think that, like, there are days where I'm like, I kind of want to like reach out to a consultant and have them look at my cost of goods sold and like my expenses, and help me really like make sure that this is a profitable business. you know None of us get into coffee because we think we're going to make the most money. There are a million better ways to make a lot of money,
There's a
probably
million better
faster.
ways to make just a little bit of money too.
Yeah, exactly. um, and we all do this because we love it, uh, and we hope that we can earn a living doing it. And for better or for worse, like, a lot of businesses don't even make it to year two, so we're lucky to even be at this point right now. And so I think, being a pop-up is probably, I can't for certain say, will be the most difficult it has ever been, but it's pretty difficult. And so I hope that when we can put everything into one space, it feels at least more manageable, and that, I can get back to a routine. Because even today, like, we had to push back about a half an hour because I had to get some roasting done for our clients, because coffee fests happened. And so, right now we're so small that if I'm not the one roasting, then no one's doing the roasting. And getting past that point where you can start bringing people in to really help you with those things is something that I'm really excited to get to. And excited to just kind of make a mark. And then another thing as well, I wasn't really sure if I was going to talk about this, but I think that there are probably decisions that we made early on in Bevel that, it's like a decision that a company that's been in business for 5 years might make. In this case, working with a branding agency and spending the money for branding. I think all that stuff is important. I think that we didn't need to do it 3 months into starting the business. I think that we could have really like let the dust settle on what the name meant and what Bevel meant to us, and all that stuff. Because you know, like you mentioned, when you visit Wisconsin, you've grown, and you're not the same person that you were when you left Wisconsin. I think the same thing is true for business, where you might start the business and have a really good idea of what your values and things are, but as soon as you start actually running your business and have spent a year or 2 years or 5 years even doing it, you will change. And so that might change. And I think that, you should always go in with like your core set of values, and those things hopefully never change. That can help guide the decision making process. But I think that waiting a little bit before making very expensive decisions that you can't resell, I think that waiting for those things maybe would have been really valuable for us. Not that I regret it, and not that, because it's a learning lesson at the end of the day, we learned a lot about that, and you know, maybe that means that we stick it out with our brand, or maybe that means that we rebrand when we open a cafe. It seems like a logical point to do that. But in any case, I'm thankful for the experience that it gave us, because it did also provide a lot of insight into how I can build a brand in the future, you know.
You're talking to a guy who named his company Roast West Coast, and I interview people all over the world and had to change the name like 3 times to try to figure out what I was doing. So I'm glad you mentioned Roaster Cat, because without her being super cool about me using the name Coffee People, this show would be something else too. Obviously, the founder of the Coffee People zine and a previously great guest on our show. Because of that, I know we're coming kind of to a close here on our time. If you were to give one piece of advice to somebody, something to help them, somebody that was thinking about starting a business in coffee, is that what it would be? The get your feet wet, see where it goes, or is there something else that you think, hey, you're right at the beginning of this journey that I'm several years into. This is what I wish I would have known.
Uh, you know, there is no substitute for just starting. You can think about starting a coffee business, or you can just start one. And you don't need to have the fanciest tools. You don't need to have a branding agency to work with. You don't need all of these things. You just have to want to do it. At the end of the day, even if I had not bought a roaster, you pop up with we could have popped up with our espresso machine. We would have bought coffee from Sight Glass or somebody. If we didn't have the espresso machine, buy a V60 and start a slow bar, and that in and of itself is a thing that people have done. There's no shortage of space for another coffee business to exist and thrive. I think as long as you are being authentic to people and showing people that you love and care about this, and are just willing to put yourself out there and share that you care about this, that's all you need. To this day, like I still to this day say, like, I just get really excited about sharing coffee. If somebody new comes to our pop-up and they buy an espresso, which, like, a black espresso is like the, ooh, this better be dialed in, it better be great, and they can double take it and go, dang, that's really good. Nothing makes me happier than to know that we not only, like, got to deliver an awesome experience to that guest, but also that coffee came probably from one of our friends at Origin. So we were able to share that person's hard work with this person and the thousands of other people that have come to our shop. So yeah, just start. It's the best thing you can do. You might need to work 2 jobs, but you'll find a way. If you want it, you'll find a way to do it.
Well said. Kevin, what did I miss today? What should I have asked that I didn't, or was important to you that people knew, if anything?
Uh, what have we missed? I don't know. I feel like we talked a lot.
I see 2 guitars in the background. Can you actually play them?
I can play them, yeah. Going back to the branding thing, if you look at, like, I'm sure there, like, if you scroll the Instagram, you'll see that, like, lately our bags have gotten a little more plain, but the old bags had, like, this big splatter pattern on them, and that was influenced by one of my favorite bands, this band Sumac, like ambient metal band. I grew up playing guitar and bass since I was, I don't know, I think the seventh grade, 12 years old or something like that. So it's always fun to say I've been playing guitar for longer than I haven't been. You know, I'm 33 now. So yeah, I do play music. And I think that actually going back to roasting coffee and that, like, there's always this, like, roasting is an art, it's a science, it's kind of both. I think for a while there was this, like, and even going to woodworking, there was this, like, music wasn't really fulfilling this, like, creative need for me for a while. And so during the pandemic, woodworking really took that place where, like, I was able to create tangible things with my hands, and it was sort of, like it's math and it's science in a way and measuring, but that's art. I get to choose and craft this thing. All of the furniture in our home, not all of the furniture, but all the furniture in our living room, coffee table, end tables, TV stand, the hutch for our bunnies, I built. And so roasting in many ways, I think, also gets to kind of take that place creatively. To be totally fair, though, the creative part of roasting really only happens when you first get a coffee and are trying to dial that in. Once you've dialed that coffee in, you're just doing the same thing 1,000 times over and over again. You've created the recipe, you follow the recipe, you stick to it, you cup it, make sure it tastes right, and then send it on its way. But in any case, yeah, that the coffee and that really takes that creative seat now. But I do still play the instruments. I do still pick up the guitar.
I mean, I mentioned earlier we have a lot of similar hobbies. Music isn't one of them. I have, some instruments, but they just hang on the wall and look cool. Nobody plays them
Okay.
in our house. Kevin, if you were to be out, let's say you're mountain biking and you stop, you run into this incredible coffee shop in the woods. It shouldn't even be there, but it looks like it's pretty good and they know what they're doing. What are you going to order?
Oh, drip coffee. That's boring, but drip coffee. If they have like a pour over menu, I might go into that. But it's my morning starts with a V60 pour over. Actually, I use the Cafe flour, but same thing, a V60, um, and yeah, that would be it. I like espresso. It's not my preferred beverage. Um, but on occasion, I think it's a running joke that most roasters do the drip coffee and an espresso when they visit cafes. If I'm visiting a cafe, uh, I'll do that. But otherwise, it's really just a drip for me. I usually won't even finish the espresso. I'm pretty caffeine sensitive, which is wild considering I work in coffee. But 1 cup of drip is all I need, and maybe I'll do that espresso midday if I've had a good bike ride or a workout.
Kevin, thank you so much for taking an hour out of your day to spend with me. I mean, it seems like you're crazy busy. I'm excited to see one, who won your big grand prizes for your anniversary party giveaways, and two, how the next year plays out, and when there's a couple of doors for me to walk through into a Bevel Coffee Cafe or whatever.
Yeah. Thank you, Ryan. Hopefully soon, fingers crossed. And, hopefully the next time you're in LA, you can definitely stop by and I'll get you a drip coffee.
Sounds like a plan, man. I appreciate it. Okay, some key takeaways from today's podcast. Kevin pointed this out, that generally, coffee people are cool. You'll get no argument from me. His foray into coffee as a business happened really quickly. Once he gets set on an idea, he's ready to make it a reality. A serendipitous conversation eventually led to a pop-up spot at Prime Pizza in his area. It's a collaboration that has benefited both companies. But Bevel is looking to open their own brick-and-mortar location sometime in the next year. They just celebrated their 2nd anniversary as a coffee roaster, and for Kevin, he's looking forward to creating some consistency and continuity in his business life that can be challenging when you're spending so much of your effort on setup that isn't necessarily moving your company forward. Beyond being a business, Kevin's relationship with coffee has enabled him to connect further with his Honduran roots that he didn't fully appreciate as a kid, but is getting a second chance to take in now. And finally, there's no substitute for just starting. You can think about it all you want, but getting going, making mistakes, creating new opportunities, even without all the fanciest toys, will get you in the game. Thanks to Kevin for coming on the Coffee People podcast. You can find him, most days, popped up at Prime Pizza. Head to bevelcoffee.com or at Bevel Coffee on Instagram for details, hours, events, and updates on their impending growth. You can find those links, more key takeaways, and other relevant links from today's show in this week's edition of the newsletter found online at coffeepeoplepodcast.com. I'll also share the details for Trailfest, where I'll be serving coffee to thirsty campers and mountain bikers. Trailfest is a great campout and bike event that serves as a fundraiser for the San Diego Mountain Biking Association, and it's held every October. It's 3 days of bike demos, campfires, happy hours, stargazing, and of course, great coffee in the Cleveland National Forest just east of San Diego. So if you're in the area, you'll find the link to tickets in our newsletter. To all of you out there in the podcasting ether, thank you for listening. And if you're doing so on Apple or Spotify, please tap that follow button. Give us all those stars if you feel we've earned them. Your reviews help others find us. You can also support this show by telling your friends about it. We're always telling our coffee friends about Roastar Coffee packaging, found at roastery.com. They are this show's presenting sponsor, and they will help you tell the big story of your small business or enable you to share that home-roasted coffee that turned out just right with your friends and family. They offer low minimums, quick turnarounds, and even have a design lab on roastery.com to help make sure you get a great-looking package. They'll work with you to ensure that in a sea of competition, your package stands out. We're also supported by some great coffee industry partners. Our legacy partners include Zumbar Coffee and Tea, Steady State Roasting, Coffee Cycle Roasting, Meija Coffee, and Cape Horn Green Coffee Importers. A special thank you to Alden Hazuri at Crossings Coffee and the Hales Brothers at Hasea Coffee Source, who've been supporting our Coffee Smarter efforts. Our full city partners include Ignite Coffee Company, Ascend Coffee Roasters, Civets Roasting Machines, Me and My Uncle Coffee, Craft 42 Roasters, and Cozy Canine Coffee. Thank you for listening and for sharing this podcast, for asking questions, and being coffee curious. This show, the Coffee People Podcast, is part of the Roast West Coast Coffee Network. This episode has been written, produced, researched, and recorded by me, Ryan Woldt. I hope this episode has found you happy, healthy, and with at least a thread of sanity left, enabling you to make it through the day. Always tip your baristas and be sure to drink good coffee. If you are in the early stages of your coffee journey, we want to support you. Check out the Coffee Smarter Education podcasts. Coffee Smarter is designed to enable coffee drinkers to brew a better cup of coffee at home. And Coffee Smarter Pro covers industry-specific topics for baristas, roasters, shop owners, and aspiring coffee professionals. You'll find both shows on your favorite podcast platforms or on our website at coffeesmarterpodcast.com.